How to manage a construction project during the exterior and interior phases. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about some of the key considerations that we need to have top of mind when we're managing this phase of work. I think you're going to love it because it'll give you a perspective that will really make sure these two work together and match together well, and you'll be able to take that and use it on your project. So if you're into that, stay with us. Okay, everybody, I'm super stoked about this. I'm going to draw on my experience with this, but I love, it's a dance. Like if you want to think of it like this, the exterior and interior phasing, it's like two people dancing, because we have to have the exterior going up to seal the building for the interiors, right? And then the interiors has to run up the building, but not just run up the building, also support the temporary cooling or the temporary heating or just the general commissioning of the building itself. So this is pretty exciting stuff. So I'm going to draw on my experience here and explain the things that are important to me. This is not everything. Obviously, we could talk here for an hour, but these are the key concepts. And if you like this, please like and subscribe. We'd love to have you. All right, number one, in exterior and interior phasing. So check this out, homie. Like when we have the interiors production plan and the exterior, there's a couple of things that I'm always looking for. I'm not going to write this down, but this will be in the actual visual and it will be in the blog post that we give you. So number one, between interiors and exterior, I'm always looking at when we have perimeter framing and then demising walls, right? We have to have perimeter framing for us to finish the walls all the way to the perimeter on every floor. The second thing is, before we start drywall or anything that is weather sensitive, we need to have the exterior of the building sealed in. That means your substrate, your air and vapor barrier, or your waterproofing and your windows substantially sealed, and then up above, and we can talk about this later, but a temporary water intrusion plan or water intrusion prevention plan, right? We have to make sure that the exterior is sealed in before we start things like drywall and then tape bed and finish, right? And then there's another really key tie, which is the exterior sealed to start interior commissioning to where the building's clean, right? Your HVAC folks, especially your commissioning folks, are going to ask for that when it comes about. So I'm always in the production plan, and I do mean always, looking for those three ties, okay? So having the exterior and interior phasing mapped out and their intersections mapped out to make sure that we're jamming is key. One of the things that I typically see is that the floors are going around floor by floor, but we're literally doing the exterior in vertical segments around the perimeter. And you have to look at this. Let me do this with my hands. Like if you're coming through in the interiors, folks are coming through floor by floor, but you're building the exterior section by section by section, you have to make sure that on the other side of the building that there isn't a big gap there, right? You have to make sure you're looking at that phasing. Here's another thing that I would say. Typically on high rises, you'll always doesn't really work, but typically you'll find that if you have, like, let's say you have a floor on a high rise, you'll find that there are areas here that have to be comeback areas. These are literally comeback areas because the exterior is not done. So you're coming up the building on a first pass, and then this is a second pass. Here's my annoyance with this. I don't mind that it happens. I do mind, right, when we don't see it and the trade partners are surprised by it, right? That needs to be a part of their bidding documents, right? Any of these comeback areas. So looking at the intersection here is key when you're doing the exterior and interiors phase. Second, your exterior logistics. I love this. I remember a building that we were planning, and this was so fun. Everything was different, right? There was a section on the building over here that was built completely with scaffolding. Everything on the upper half was built from swing stages, and that was really interesting. This area over here was designed by boom lifts. And what we did here, and I've got other videos on this, I won't go into it in too much depth, but what we had to do was understand how the concrete went up, right? And then understand how we were going to build from the scaffolding, swing stage, and the boom lift at different times, and when they were going to finish, and release the work on the inside of the building. So you have to really map out, how are you going to build these different segments all the way up the building, and you've got to design your logistics systems to specifically make sure that everything on the exterior, whether it's masonry or exterior curtain wall, metal panels, it's a brick veneer, you've got sunshades, windows, whatever. You ask the question, how are we going to install those? And how do we make sure that we have the right space on the outside of the building to accommodate it? Make sure your project is set up for exterior logistics. Now, this might seem common sense, but this is why I'm talking about it. You also have to map out your interior logistics. How are you going to get materials to the inside and up through a hoist without affecting the exterior logistics? Right? Obviously later that hoist will have to come down. It will have to infill that. It will have comeback rooms. It will have to fill in once that hoist comes down, once the exterior is in. But make sure these all work together. And if you do that, you'll have the right intersection. You'll have your space for the exterior so they have enough laydown areas. You'll have the interiors logistics to access the inside of the building, and it will all be coordinated, like I said, in this dance. And if you're dancing with me, let's like and subscribe to this video, because you know we want you here. Okay, all right. The other thing that I want to talk about is from a priority standpoint, the exterior, the focus here is typically seal that building. We want this safe from a water intrusion standpoint, from weather, from cold, from heat, so that we can then in the inside advance to our HVAC, right? So come up with the sequence, the overall strategic and tactical plan, and short interval planning with the last planners to get that building sealed as fast as we can, right? So here's what you're thinking, right? If you need to do your framing and sheathing and your air and vapor barrier and windows, and you're going to use resources to then do the cladding on the ground floor, maybe that's not the best. Maybe you get that building sealed all the way up to air and vapor barrier and windows, and then the cladding, because the cladding doesn't have anything to do typically with the interior. So get that building sealed. And then on the inside, this will seem a little bit common sense to you, but let me draw it anyway. While you're doing your interiors through the building, you really want to make sure that you're coming up with your electrical rooms, your comm rooms, you're coming up with chases, right? Because your site utilities come into the entry rooms and into your service entry section, your mechanical room, your fire riser room, and then you need to go up through the building, because typically up here on the roof, we have air handlers that can either heat or cool the building and blow in hot air or blow in cool air for us to at least allow workers to work in there during critical months of the year, during hot and cold weather months. But also you're going to need it for commissioning. You're going to want to start your testing and balance. You're going to want to start your functional performance testing. So having that building sealed and advancing, typically, like I said, it's your electrical rooms, your comm rooms, your chases. Go up the building as fast as you can with your priority walls. Get that air handler, get chilled water, get heating hot water, get domestic water, right? Make sure that you have power to the units so that you can put those air handlers in hand, if allowed, and blow hot air, blow cold air inside the building. Start your commissioning process, right? So that's key. And then the only other thing that I really want to mention, in addition to advancing to these key things, which I think you already knew about, but I want you to visualize, is make sure that we're breaking things out by functional areas. Let me just go on a little bit of a rant. I hate this. You'll have a big contractor doing a big job. It's $1 billion, and they'll have one team. And everybody's burnt out, and everybody's pissed off, and nobody's getting home to their families. Why does this happen? Because they don't break the project out into functional areas. $1 billion project is nothing more than 4 to 10 small projects with their own teams. So I want you to look at it like this. If you're running the interiors and the exterior, you have no business running that with the same PM and the same superintendent, at least on the area level. You need your own assistant PM or PE, and you need your own assistant superintendent running the exterior and the interiors. Break those functional areas out. They have their own foreman, their own last planner huddles. They have their own meeting system. They're separated. Otherwise, your meetings are going to get too big. You're going to cover too much information. There's going to be too much of a delay, too much batching, too much stress, too much frustration. You've got to break your project out into functional areas, and now is the time to do it. Do not let yourself manage that whole massive project with just one team. Separate that out. So you can be really successful with this if you have the right sequence and intersections, the right logistics for both sides, and you advance towards the goal with independent teams. So this is how this works, at least from a high level. There's much more to it, but make sure you're focused on this. We're going to turn this into a visual and a blog post and link you to other videos about how to manage other phases. But I really hope you've enjoyed this video. On we go.